This is a reading from Modern Saints by Anne Ball. Chapter 38, Mother Mary Walsh. Mother Mary Walsh, O.P., born 1850, died 1922, born in England, died in the United States at the age of 72. On Friday morning, November the 10th, 1922, the solemn Requiem Mass for Mother Mary Walsh was offered at the Church of St. Vincent Ferrer in New York City. Into the large cathedral-like church filed hundreds of men and women from all walks of life, of all races and creeds, numerous members of the clergy, from Archbishop of New York to simple parish priests, women religious from many orders, representatives of lay organizations, and individual mourners came to pay their last respects to this remarkable woman who had dedicated her life to God in the service of his sick poor. Perhaps most impressive of all were the hundreds of poor people in shabby clothes who came with a final tribute of love and gratitude to the humble Irish immigrant who had begun a great work, a work carried on today by the religious order she founded, the Dominican Congregation of the Immaculate Conception. On her way to work as a laundress one sweltering summer day in 1876, Mary Walsh noticed a small girl of about 7, sitting in a doorway crying. She stopped to ask what was the matter, and the child led her to a dingy tenement room in the Hell's Kitchen section of New York City. In this small room on the 4th floor, incredibly hot, dirty, and gloomy, Mary found a critically ill woman with a newborn child dead at her side. 3 other children under 5 huddled in a corner. No food or medicine were to be found among the filth. Mary washed the woman's face and wrapped the dead infant in a blanket, removing it from its mother's sight. After talking to the sick woman, Mary learned that her husband was in jail for drunkenness and fighting. Telling the woman she would be back shortly, Mary returned to her own room and got out her small savings. Meeting several friends on the way, she told them of the Dunn family's situation and begged them in the name of Christ to help in any way they could. Within a few days, she had begged aid and substantially helped the family in several ways. Fresh bedding and clothes were brought. The dead child was buried. Food and medicine were purchased, and the gas bill was paid. Mary talked to the father upon his release from jail and persuaded him to promise to try to stop drinking so much. A good man, he had simply been overwhelmed by steadily decreasing fortunes. Mary talked to his employer and persuaded him to give Mr. Dunn another chance. Her dedicated care for this family brought more than simply material improvement. It also brought hope. For Mary, these efforts brought the loss of her job as a laundress for a well-to-do family. In dismissing her, the employer told Mary that her actions were foolish and impractical. However, she acknowledged Mary's courage. Faced with the choice of keeping her job or helping the Dunn family, she had unhesitatingly chosen the latter. From this incident, Mary turned her steps to a path of service to the poor that never wavered for the next 46 years. Mary Walsh was born in an Irish section of London, probably in 1850. Her parents had moved to England because of the economic pressures in Ireland after the potato famine. Mary's parents died of black diphtheria while she was an infant, and her paternal grandmother came over to take her back to Ireland. Mary lived with her grandmother and her aunt in Knockaderry, County Limerick, until she was 18. As a young child, she first attended a Catholic school taught by the Sisters of Mercy, and later a national school. She would get up early and finish her chores, then travel to school by walking or riding a donkey. It was not far to the school, but the roads were rough and travel difficult. Mary's grandmother, who was like a mother to her, gave Mary a good, well-balanced religious upbringing. In addition, she saw to it that Mary learned several practical skills such as embroidery and fine needlework. When her grandmother died, the 18-year-old girl was faced with the task of making her own living. Her maternal uncle urged her to go with him when he returned to the United States and offered to pay her fare. He had a large family, and Mary's help would be welcome. She traveled with him to Pennsylvania, but lived with the family for less than a year. Her aunt was a difficult woman, and as soon as Mary had repaid the price of her ticket through service, she left for New York to seek domestic employment. Her specialty was laundry work, and for 10 years she served as a laundress in the homes of several wealthy families. During this time, Mary attended the parish of St. Vincent Ferrer, where the pastor, Father Dominic Lilly, was a Dominican priest. Under his direction, she became a Dominican tertiary, a member of a secular order or third order, whose members lived their lives with special striving towards perfection. Her days were filled with work to earn her living, attending the meetings of the tertiaries and giving help to the poor whom she began to seek out. Feeling drawn to the religious life, she asked Father Lilly about the possibility of becoming a nun. She wished to enter a cloistered order, but he dissuaded her from this idea and counseled her to wait. As Mary went daily to help those in need, she became more and more aware of their problems. This awareness translated itself into immediate action. Father Lilly said of her, "It is amazing what Mary Walsh can accomplish for the poor and sick with no funds or resources. Sometimes it is hard for me to believe the evidence." The sympathetic interest shown by this plain young woman seemed to draw forth confidence from all who came in contact with her. She was shocked by the marriages being broken because of the discouragement of extreme poverty. Men and women lived in constant fear of eviction from even the filthy, overcrowded tenements they called home. New York at this time had few relief agencies and no visiting nurse service. The poor were frightened of the impersonal hospitals. Mary realized that if these people could be aided temporarily, they might then also be reached spiritually. She recognized the souls that hid inside the broken bodies and crushed spirits she saw. Mary realized that her life's work was to be among the poor. At the time of her reception into the Third Order of St. Dominic in the fall of 1879, she had chosen the name of Sister Mary Magdalene. Shortly after this date, she and a co-worker, another tertiary, moved into rented rooms in the parish of St. Paul the Apostle and began to support themselves and their work by taking in washing. To this first helper, Mary said, "Our road will be rocky, and the human side of us will get discouraged sometimes, but we cannot fail, for God is our ally." When you think of it like that, it is truly wonderful, isn't it? Mary's road was indeed rocky, and personal hurts and insults often came her way, but through every trial and personal injury, she trusted implicitly in the providence and direction of God. The two women began a plan of prayer, manual labor, and works of charity. As far as possible, they worked the first 3 days of the week and spent the rest of their time working among the poor. On Thursdays, they solicited money and begged food and clothing. The large wicker baskets they carried soon became known to all in the neighborhood. On Saturdays, they distributed the food and goods they earned or begged earlier in the week. Then, too, they gave nursing care to those who needed it, cleaning house and bathing children when this was necessary. During their first 2 years, they cared for about 20 families on a regular basis. The two women worked hard, often ironing late into the night. They spent little on their own accommodations, preferring to give what they had to those who were in greater need. In the spring of 1881, Sister Mary's co-worker became ill, and as they had no money for coal, she rented a room. The rented room was uncomfortably cold. One morning, after her helper had complained bitterly about their circumstances, Sister Mary found a quarter on the street, and she was starting out to collect the laundry. With this coin, she went to Murphy's Coal and Wood and ordered a quarter's worth of coal. She realized that the amount of coal would be small, but the store owner promised to deliver it that morning. At least it would provide heat for a short while and enable her to have hot water for the laundry. When she reached home, a smiling co-worker and a warm room greeted her. An oversized container of coal leaned against the wall with a note from the vendor. It read, "Miss Mary, a man standing near you overheard your order for a quarter's worth of coal. He questioned me after you left and then paid for a $5 order to be delivered to your flat. He didn't tell me his name. I had never seen him in my store till this morning, so I'm returning your money. You'll be using it now on someone else, I know." This incident and the anonymous benefactor were never forgotten. This was only one of the many gifts that supported and encouraged Sister Mary in her work throughout the years. A friendly and sympathetic pastor of the Paulist Church, Father Nevins, sent for Sister Mary and told her of his appreciation of her work. He was convinced that her vocation was to nurse the sick poor in their homes, and expressed his willingness to help the poor, to help the work expand. He hoped to enlist other young women. In 1885, 2 new recruits came to join the original tertiaries in their life of service. Through the years, some of the recruits left. The extreme hardship and poverty were too difficult for some who were attracted to the good they saw being accomplished. In the early days, the sisters were often no better off financially than the poor they served, but Sister Mary's keen sense of humor got them through many a depressing time, once with quite surprising results. On this occasion, the sisters were entirely without food. Sister Mary began telling her companion, Sister Dominic, stories of her childhood in Ireland, and she perfectly imitated an old rooster that had lived on the family farm. Sister Mary was a good mimic, and the two sisters began laughing. Sister Mary had just repeated her imitation when a knock on the door signaled the presence of the next-door neighbor, whose apartment was separated from theirs by a thin wall. The irate man exclaimed, "For heaven's sake, get rid of that rooster and let a man get some sleep." With that, he pushed a $5 bill into the surprised sister's hand and went back home to bed. In 1887, Sister Mary was called to a basement apartment where she found an old man in his final illness. With him lived a little 5-year-old child, Mary Chefida Knapp, his cousin's orphaned daughter. The old man asked Sister Mary to care for her after his death, which she promised to do. Although she probably intended only to care for the child until a suitable home could be found, somehow Mary Chefida stayed on. After consulting her spiritual director, Father Nevins, Sister Mary opened her home to the little girl until she was grown. At 18, she became a tertiary and one of the helpless until her early death from spinal meningitis. At this time, a change became apparent in the attitude of the first co-worker who had come to assist Sister Mary in her work. Shortly after Mary Chefida's arrival, this woman severed her association and left. 24 years later, this same woman wanted to rejoin the group of sisters who had just been given official recognition as affiliates of the Dominican order. The novice mistress who interviewed her refused to admit her, and she left angrily, swearing to get even. One of Sister Mary's greatest sorrows came through this woman. Although Sister Mary had had nothing to do with refusing her admittance, the woman determined on a cruel revenge for her rejection. In 1913, this former co-worker wrote a letter to Sister Mary Walsh. Sister Mary shared the letter only with her sub-prioress, and that only to ask help in planning how to defend her sisters. This former friend and companion had written a slanderous accusation that Sister Mary was the mother of Mary Chefida. Further, she stated that the accusation had been sent to the Archbishop of New York and the Dominican Provincial. She also promised to spread the slander to everyone. In the presence of the sub-prioress, Sister Mary wept unrestrainedly, but her concern was for the damage such slander might do to the infant community. After a few moments, she told Sister Reginald, "I'll put this in the hands of God. He will protect our community. With all my heart and soul, I believe that." Then she cautioned Sister Reginald, "The sisters must not know. God will take care of us. I am not afraid now." But what were Sister Mary's feelings towards the one who had become, in effect, a Judas? Her words to Sister Reginald were, "There is only one thing I wish for," the name of the first associate, "and that if she ever needs us, I hope that she will learn of it in time to take care of her." This wish came true after Sister Mary's own death. Nearly 15 years later, someone reported a woman badly in need of care. One of the sisters went to help and soon learned that this was the foundress's first helper. At first unresponsive, she gradually warmed to the sister's love. One day, the repentant woman told the sister, "I hurt Mother Mary Walsh terribly when I wrote that lie, and I did her a great harm. Many times I've been sorry that I even left her." Within a few months, the woman died. The sisters who cared for her knew they had carried out the express wish of their foundress. Mother Mary Walsh is remembered for the wise and practical advice she gave to her sisters. She often told stories on herself as illustrations. Humility was a virtue she prized highly and strived constantly to attain. Though practicing humility was not always easy for her, many people will testify that this was one of her most outstanding character traits. She herself said humility can be given a dignity of its own. She recalled an incident that occurred when one other sister and 3 children were living with her. When I delivered a big basket of freshly laundered clothes to a certain woman, she was indignant at my price, but I knew my rate was fair and that she was able to pay what I asked. She mumbled and grumbled, and then she paid me. But in a most ungracious manner, she threw the money on the floor at my feet. My Irish blood boiled for a moment. I was really furious, and I was tempted to let the money lie there, turn my back, and go. But I realized that if I did not take it up, the children would not have any supper that night, and they would not be put to, and they should not be put to bed hungry because my pride had been hurt. So I got down on my knees and picked up the money, piece by piece. When I arose, the woman seemed ashamed of what she had done, and she asked hesitatingly, "Sister, I'd like to give you some apples to take to the children." I accepted them, of course, for the children loved apples, which I could not often buy for them, and I knew the gift was an attempt to make amends for the rudeness. Sister Mary's humility led her, in the early days of the community, to request that a seemingly more able superior be appointed in her place. This young woman was educated and capable. Indeed, she accomplished much good for the group. However, like many others who have an easy access to drugs, she began to misuse them to help in coping with the strain of her life. When Sister Mary noticed this, she quietly went to her spiritual director to present the problem to him. Misunderstanding her motives and unwilling to believe what she was telling him, he sent Sister Mary herself away for a rest for her health, strictly cautioning her not to speak of the matter to anyone. Sister Mary spent almost 3 years in this exile from her community. No one who was associated with her at this time recalls a single uncharitable word about the reason she had been sent away from the other sisters. At last, someone, possibly a member of the superior's own family, spoke to the proper ecclesiastical authorities, who investigated and quietly had the woman placed in a private psychiatric hospital where she eventually recovered. Vindicated and reassured that both her spiritual director and the sisters were eager to have her back, Sister Mary returned, not in a spirit of triumph, but rather with humility, holding no grudge and refusing to talk of the past. She simply began quietly to look to the future and rebuild the young community. On August the 4th, 1910, Sister Mary received the word that a dream she had cherished for many years was finally a reality. The little group, which over the years had come together to serve the sick poor, was officially affiliated with the Dominican order. Up to that time, Sister Mary had spent 34 years working for God in the slums of New York City. To many, she had become known as the Holy Washerwoman. Now, at the age of 60, this humble tertiary became a Dominican religious. What did Sister Mary Walsh think of her own role in founding this little congregation? She said, "Who am I to think that I am somebody? Poor and uneducated, I could never have done anything on my own. No one knows my unworthiness more than I do. I am God's instrument, but why he chose me, I will never venture to guess." Sister Mary humbly refused to be dispensed from making a novitiate with the others when they were formally affiliated with the Dominican order. A sister from another order was brought in as novice mistress and temporary superior. In company with her sisters, most of them years younger than she, Sister Mary followed the prescribed training. The novice mistress said, "Sister Mary accepted correction better than any religious I ever knew. I gave her many penances and humiliations, but never once did she show any sign of disobedience or pride." The first group of sisters was professed in 1911. Sister Mary was elected Superior General, an office she was to hold for life. Her efforts to guide the sisters in living their vocations were outstanding. The group expanded and accepted an invitation to work in another city. Mother Mary Walsh believed she should communicate with the new group, and when her fingers stiffened with arthritis to the point where she could barely hold a pen, she learned to type. The sisters took no pay from those they served. Mother Mary taught them to completely trust in God, to provide generous benefactors, which he always did. She called God her banker. Mother Mary Walsh recognized the need for annual renewal and refreshment, both for her sisters and the sick poor. For the sisters, she insisted on an annual vacation away from their stressful daily environment, and through the generosity of several people was able to provide a summer home and transportation to it. Also, through the generosity of benefactors, she arranged a summer rest for the sick poor. For some, these trips were the first vacations they had ever had. For some of the children, the trips marked their first time out of the city. Fear was never part of Mother Mary's life. Once asked if she wasn't afraid of meeting bad characters in the places where work took her, she replied, "When you try to live in the presence of God and do all your work for love of Him, then your fears disappear completely, and with them much of what you call danger." During her lifetime, Mother Mary's work took her into all sorts of situations, but she never considered a single soul beneath her or undeserving of her help. Once in 1901, a neighbor had reported to the Paulist Fathers that an old woman living alone was dying. One of the priests, believing that the woman might need personal attention before his arrival, asked Sister Mary to hurry to help her prepare for the last sacraments. Sister had not known the woman before, but hurried off to see what she could do. On her arrival, the room was so dark that she had to light a candle to see. The smell in the room was terrible, and as Sister Mary entered, a large rat pulled at her skirt. Hearing a pitiful moan from what she took to be a bundle of rags in the corner, she investigated and discovered an elderly woman distorted with pain. One of her feet was mutilated from the attack of the rats. The woman expressed her fear of rats and her gratitude that Sister Mary had come to help. When told that the priest was on his way, she wept to think of the state in which he would find her. But Sister Mary calmly assured her that she would handle everything. Sister made the woman comfortable in a small area of cleanliness she managed to make in the center of the room. She assisted the priest upon his arrival and stayed with the woman until the city ambulance came to take her to Almshouse Hospital. Another time, a rookie policeman was startled in the early hours of a winter morning to see Sister Mary emerge from a house known as the home of a prostitute. In amazement, he asked if she realized the sort of place it was and how long she had been there. She replied that of course she knew what the house was and that she had been there most of the night. But I couldn't let that stand in my way when one of those poor unfortunate women sent for me, could I? When he learned that the girl had sent for Sister Mary, he began to expostulate about the matter, but Sister Mary scolded him. The young policeman later remembered her parting words, "Never forget, Mr. Clancy, that those people have souls, too." During the last few years of her life, Mary Mother Walsh was often occupied with the business of governing the young religious order she had founded. Under her direction, several new foundations were made, but she never ceased being actively involved in the work her sisters were carrying on. When she was 72, she went to Hampton Bays to see some of the sisters who were convalescing there and to talk with the sister who would be the superior of the new mission soon to be opened in Denver. While there, Mother Mary suffered an attack of angina pectoris and died 2 days later after receiving the last sacraments. Today, Mother Mary Walsh's sisters continue her work in 5 dioceses in the United States. They are known as Dominican Sisters of the Sick Poor. Mary Walsh, a young Irish immigrant living in New York, was dismissed from her job for helping a family in distress. She and a helper began an apostolate to the sick poor. They supported themselves and their work by taking in laundry. Mary Walsh became known as the Holy Washerwoman. This photograph shows her as a Dominican tertiary. Mother Mary Walsh in the Dominican habit. When Mary Walsh was 60 years old, her community was officially recognized by the church. She and her followers became the Dominican Congregation of the Immaculate Conception, also called the Dominican Sisters of the Sick Poor. Mary Chefeda Knapp came to live with Mother Mary Walsh when she was a 5-year-old orphan. She later became a Dominican tertiary and helped with the charitable work until her early death of spinal meningitis.